Hey everybody, TurboDog702 here, just doing a quick kind of analysis feedback thing for Californiathon, now Calithon 2019. Uh, so I guess I'll do the very quick thing. I will be doing a separate video, kind of more staff related, and I'll go ahead and post that separately. But this is more kind of the general gist of things, if you will. So in general, I guess I would give it a somewhere between a 4 or a 4.5 out of 5. Um, that's from my perspective as just a person that was at the event. I want to qualify this by saying that I am not part of staff for Calithon. I do help with game selection, but I don't have any impact on what actual games are like in or not in or venue or anything like that. All I can do is give my views on game selection. So with that in mind, kind of talking about some of the things that happened at the event. So tech, very impressed from what I saw personally. The only things that stood out to me personally that I was aware of, I know that Dead Rising apparently had some audio problems and an issue with the host informing the runner of the incentives at the beginning of the run. Apparently that got worked out as the run went by with the host and everything, but that was a little bit of an odd issue that came up. Audio issues should never really be something that you should have to worry about, but something, I guess, communication-wise broke down. I will say that if you are a runner at one of these events, and something's wrong, like you can't hear your couch, or you can't hear the game super well, talk to the people. Like, you have to let them know what's happening so they can get on top of it. I don't know if that was the case here, but it is something to keep in mind going into future events, or if you've never been to a live event and you're going to be doing a run at one, take that extra 2 minutes to make sure that you can perform your run the way you need to. Other things that happen with tech. I know that the stream had gone down, I think, 3 times during the World Ends With You. That I am not going to put on the tech crew. I have no idea what the timetable looked like on when they swapped the computer, but they very quickly found out that they needed to swap computers, and they did what they had to. I probably would have made this call after the second down if they didn't at that point. But if it was after the third down, that's fine. I mean, you've identified that the computer's the problem and you need to swap it. That's all you can really do. It happens. We also had a small tech problem setting up the cell phone SOTN. That being said, that's a really odd thing, and that kind of got popped at the last minute as kind of a snap incentive, so I don't blame the tech crew for that again. There was also an issue with the Wi-Fi at the venue that was causing most of the problems with that. So again, these are things that are out of the tech's control. They did as much as they could to account for that. The only thing, besides the Igdisis run, the only thing that I would say is during the SOTN run specifically. I was off camera for the All Bosses one, or at least I was not on couch. And I remember Muncha Koopa's asking me, he's like, is SOTN a 16:9 or a 4:3? And I said, with the full layout and the sidebars, that's a 16:9. It's about a 4:3 if you're just capturing the game feed. And I started seeing, because we had a screen in front of us for the spectators in the crowd, I started to see that it was swapping back and forth. And I mean, and this is, I'm not trying to put Munch on the spot at all. Like, he was the go-between, because I didn't want to go over to tech. He had direct communication from them at that point in the room. I was like, I don't care what they pick, just pick a layout and stick with it. Because swapping between them, like back and forth, was definitely causing problems. Looking at the chat, a lot of people wanted to do 4:3, but this was in retrospect. I had checked out the video afterward. A lot of people wanted 4:3 and just to capture the game feed. Like, to me, when they asked me, I was like, I don't care which one you pick, just pick one and go with it. If you have any ideas on that, then by all means, leave a comment or let me know on Twitter, like, hey, when this stuff's getting presented, or on the SOTN Discord that we have, the long library. be like, hey, when you guys do speedrunning events, I would prefer if it was in 4-3, or if you don't care, again, like me, again, for me, I was just like, I don't care what it is, just pick one and stick with it. That was the only tech issue on my end that I saw that was like weird. Um, on the issue of tech stuff, I kind of want to give a little bit of a personal apology to my co-players Tuxdev and Aussie, and I believe it was Peter who was on Tech Station at the time during our Dragon's Crown run. So if you notice, during I think it's the Kraken cooking scene, you see me kind of like roll my eyes and just like toss my controller on the ground. So from my perspective, what I saw was I saw Peter from Tech Crew walk behind the monitors, pull a cable, and the screen went black. Like right when he did that. And at that time I was just like, what the fuck? Turns out, funny enough, that the timing was synced up perfectly for him pulling that cable as to when Tuxdev, his controller malfunctioned. If you notice a little bit before that, his cursor, which you control with the analog stick in Dragon's Crown, was like slightly scrolling upward, and he was trying to fix that, I guess. So it was just bad timing on the Tech Crew's part. But I did want to personally apologize for that, because that's like, that wasn't Tech Crew's fault, and it wasn't necessarily Tuxdev's fault either. I mean, his controller's flipping out, he has to do something or else he can't play, right? But I kind of lightly blew up, as it were, as a result of that. In general, though, very pleased with how the Dragon's Crown run went, though. Very pleased with the amount that we raised. Unfortunate that we didn't get to unlock some stuff, but that's something that I more want to talk of as far as like staff is concerned. I don't think you guys care about so much the nitty gritty of details on that, nor would I want to talk about it too much. For the rest of the event, Direct Relief headquarters was great. It gives us a little bit more room to grow as well as the event gets bigger. I heard it mentioned that they wish that we had a room that was across the main hall as well. That I don't think is going to happen, just because of the makeup of the headquarters, but it is something to keep in mind, like maybe as we grow bigger and bigger, we might integrate another room. In general, considering that the audience most of the time wasn't huge, I would almost be in favor of maybe chopping the back third of the stream room, basically, and turning that into like kind of a side area for something, or maybe a prep station if people need like dedicated practice, or maybe a board gaming area, something that wouldn't be disruptive to the stream, but something that we could use the space a little bit more adequately. We didn't really have like a huge audience presence for most of the runs. I expect that to change in the future, but if we're finding kind of the same numbers of people coming into a Calithon event, it would be nice to present that as an option, an extra option, or get another room if possible on the first floor to be able to hang out and do other special things like board gaming or something like that. What else? Both Twitch and Direct Relief took more of a hands-off approach on this marathon. Like, they were still Campy and MC were definitely still there. Sinister was still there. Romscout was still there. But for the most part, they kind of let staff run the show. They let them do what they thought was right, and they might have given some insight here and there, but this was really Calithon's kind of figure out how to run an event and do it yourself. Like, we want to see that you can do this, which is fine. Like, you have to take off the training wheels at some point, right? So let's see. Other things for the event. Traditionally, for Calithon, we have had very sparse monitors, like high-definition monitors, and the monitors that we have had are rather poor. I remember my homecoming run, in the second Calithon was done on a monitor that had between a third and a half a second of input lag, which is, I won't say it's the only reason why I had to do a reset at the beginning of the run, but like it probably contributed. I also had to very slowly take some clips as a result. This one, not the case at all. Apparently, we were provided via Red Bull with really, really like not the highest high-end monitor, like not the 1%, but maybe the top 5% or something, like 1080p monitors with 240 hertz refresh rate, just like really, really, really solid monitors to play with. They also hooked us up with some substantial gaming rigs as well for practice, which was awesome for like the PC person. Side note, I actually brought, and people can confirm this, I actually brought like basically 200 pounds of computer and equipment because I was like, you know what, we usually don't have good HD monitors. We have some PC runs. If I bring mine there, like maybe I can help somebody out if they need to warm up for their run. So I brought it. Didn't end up needing it. Kind of got blown out as I was carrying around this huge amount of extra equipment, but that's all right. You know, I'd rather that the stuff was there than not. But yeah, we had plenty of monitors on site, plenty of CRTs on site, a fair amount of room. Red Bull also hooked up the venue with like, no joke, like 2,000 Red Bulls or something, which was great for that. But that is one of the criticisms I will say is like we had this enormous amount of Red Bull, and people were bringing in like 36 packs of water. But when people would bring in that 36 pack of water, it'd be gone like in 3 minutes. You know, everybody would see it and grab a bottle and it'd be out. So maybe in the future, even if we don't partner with Red Bull, like just having a little bit more of a regular flow of water coming in would be nice. I was told, I did verify this also with a couple of people, including direct relief representatives of the thing. I was told that food and drink was allowed in all parts of the venue. I asked them this because originally I was supposed to help out with enforcement. That was kind of dropped in favor of having staff do enforcement. So, you know, I was like, okay, well, just have free time to do kind of whatever I want to. But I did ask them, and they said that, at the time at least, they said that food and drink was allowed at all parts of the venue. So that was pretty cool. I do kind of expect that to change, not because any catastrophes happened, but just because in general, like, we had the stream room, we had a side room, and we had a patio, and it seemed more reasonable to me to just have people relegate their food and drink to the patio. So, you know, except for water, because, you know, fucking water, right? Let's see. Trying to think of anything, like, extremely positive or negative that I can kind of mention about the event. So Snap incentives that we were doing. Originally, we had kind of an incentive tracker through Tiltify. What we were finding is people were mentioning donation incentives in their. They weren't saying put this money towards this incentive, but we saw people mentioning incentives in the messages, but they weren't actually ticking the box to put it towards that incentive. Because of that kind of ambiguity for the donators, it was decided about midway through the marathon to just make them more milestones, which I actually kind of like as a system for certain things. But let me kind of get back to that with my next point. So while I like that as a concept, what ended up happening was eventually, because of these extra incentives being added, sometime between, I don't know the exact time, but sometime between Sunday or Saturday and Sunday, we got significantly behind schedule. Like a significant portion. This was probably the bigger issue that I had with the marathon was the late scheduling. Let's kind of hit some high points here. We ran Super Meat Boy, which it's not Super Mario, not Sonic or something, but it's a well-known speed game that a lot of people know and care about, kind of. We ran it at 4 a.m. We ran The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, I think, at 6 a.m. A Zelda game at 6 a.m. We ran Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time kind of close to each other when I feel like they might have been better served splitting up. That is partially due to drops. I will talk about that as well. But like we were running these primo games, like I'll take personal responsibility on some of it. We were offered some incentives for Symphony of the Night through our second block, and we spent about 30 or 40 minutes doing some extra things for some snap incentives. I'll take personal responsibility for that. What I won't take responsibility for is we ran Super Mario 64 at 11 p.m. We ran Earthbound past midnight. These are things that are kind of problematic for a number of reasons. Number one, I really wish we could have run those at more prime times. But more importantly, another member of kind of like pseudo staff, not staff, but helps out and talks with them. They mentioned that Calithon has like a very specific issue where we are a West Coast marathon that needs to cater to the entirety of the US, which means that, something like 75% of the population is going to be ahead in time. So it's like, which group do we do? Do we just shoot for West Coast audience? Do we shoot for the entire United States? If we're trying to hit Europe and Japan as well, like, those are other issues. Ones that I think should be handled later on when we start to build more of a presence, but it is something to consider that by basing our time at certain points, we are excluding either the West or East Coast on prime time. We need to acknowledge that and figure out something that can work. I don't have a good solution for that. I will fully admit that. But I do feel like these games probably should have gotten a better time slot, but that's something happened. I can't really comment on it because I don't know the full details on it. Speaking of scheduling stuff, I would like to give a big shout out to Calithon scheduling staff because from 2 weeks to 1 week to 2 days out to 1 day out from the marathon, we had drops like machine gunning. Like, person drops 2 weeks out, person drops 2 weeks out, person drops 2 weeks out. Okay, 1 week out, drop, 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 drop. And then 2 days and 1 day out, and the same day of the event, apparently half the country got just like shut down by weather. And we lost a lot of runs in that time. I will say, again, I don't know the full details of everything, but I'll give you guys a little insight. We did have an extensive backup list. Some of those backups were actually lost during the drop phase. In addition to the extensive backup list, we had staff that said, we are guaranteed to be there. We can fill in a certain amount of games if things go wrong. And I think that kind of did with 1 or 2 runs. That has nothing to do with favoritism or anything like that. It's just like, they're staff. They are going to be there. So they're like a guaranteed backup for the extra backups that we had. But you need to understand how many of these backups and main games we lost. Particularly heavy hitters. And I hope that's not a deterrent when it comes to direct relief and kind of talking about them or the growth of Calithon as a whole. I think that the staff did a very admirable job of trying to do crisis management, for lack of a better term. And maybe that's something that can be worked on in the future a little bit. But given this was like their first outing on it, I think they did what they could with it. Yeah, just like kind of replacing things as quickly as they were able to, and really scrambling on things. For example, we lost Final Fantasy 1, we lost Super Mario RPG, which are 2 really huge games, for those of you not so much in the know, for like marathon charity contributions. We were aware for quite some time that we weren't going to have the Mario Maker presence that we had this year. People had family affairs to take care of, and totally respectable. So we knew we weren't going to have that buffer. So between those 3 really huge drops, in addition to everything else, particularly certain personalities, I think they did a pretty good job of kind of shoring that up. And like I said, I wanted to give a personal thank you on that regard because I know that's like again, when you look at how many dropped and in such a short time span, it's amazing that things kind of worked out the way they did. Uh, Talking to kind of some direct relief people, the higher ups seemed very happy with the event. Talking to people on site seemed by and large very happy with the event and the event space. Great location, a lot of food around. I kind of wish we had better hotels, but that's, this is kind of a swap. I won't say short notice, but, figuring out where it was going to be and getting the appropriate accommodations was a bit of an issue. Hopefully they get that a little bit more ironed out next year. So again, for the too long didn't watch, 4 to a 4 out of 5 event. Very happy with the crisis management that went on. Personally, almost flawless with the tech. There was some issues that I did mention regarding Soten, Dead Rising, and some sort of time loss between Saturday and Sunday. Really happy with direct relief and the space they gave us. Really happy with the extra amenities for PC runners as far as monitors and practice PCs. In general, from a viewer and a person at the event, not related to staff, very happy with. Hopefully we get a lot of these people returning. Hopefully we get things kind of sorted out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed if you did go. This is TurboDog702 for the Calithon 2019 kind of like feedback wrap up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And I'll be making a separate one, kind of brief one for staff as well. Kind of talking about more focused things. Thank you guys.